I'm the Public Information Manager for the San Juan County Sheriff's Office. I'm assisting the Farmington Police Department today. Speaking with you today, we have two deputy chiefs from FPD. We have Mayor Duckett, FBI's Assistant Special Agent, Sheriff Ferrari, and Farmington Fire Chief. They will introduce themselves. This afternoon, we will be talking about the shooting that occurred on May 15th, 2023. Any questions that you have about matters outside of this topic, we will be happy to discuss with you at a different time. The active shoot incident is the only subject we are prepared to speak about today. Following the incident update, we will allow up to 15 minutes for questions. We will have questions coming in through Zoom as well, so Shanice Gonzalez, the Farmington Police Department PIO, will be monitoring those and voicing those as they come in.
Can everybody hear me okay? Okay. So I'm Deputy Chief Kyle Dowdy. I'm Deputy Chief of the Farmington, New Mexico Police Department. KYLEDOWDY.
I'm Deputy Chief Barrett Crum of the Farmington Police Department. BARICCRUM.
Good afternoon. I'm San Juan County Sheriff Shane Ferrari, SHANE, last name FERRARI.
Good afternoon. I am Farmington Mayor Nate Duckett, NATEDUCKETT.
I'm Robert Sterrett, Farmington Fire Chief, ROBERTSTERRETT.
Good afternoon. My name is Ruben Marchand Morales, RUBEN, last name Marchand, MARCHAND, Morales, MORALES. I'm the Assistant Special Agent in charge for the FBI in New Mexico.
Good afternoon. My name is Tim Johnson, TIMJOHNSON, Chief of the New Mexico State Police.
Okay, so you guys are aware of the situation we're here to brief about today. The agenda is going to go, we just did introductions. We'll have some short opening messages from some of the distinguished people behind me. I will give a timeline of events, at which point Deputy Chief Barrett Crum will give any updates on victims, information and updates on victims, and then we're going to open the floor to questions. So the Mayor of Farmington, Nate Duckett, will begin.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Yesterday, our community was shaken to the core by an unthinkable incident that robbed families of their loved ones and changed people's lives forever. Today, I'm addressing our citizen in a continued spirit of hope, unity, and healing. We are resilient. Farmington, San Juan County, these are the moments where our community must come together and show our true strength, our true character, and support one another as so many are in pain. There is no doubt yesterday that countless lives were saved by the heroic efforts and quick action of our law enforcement agents from multiple departments who addressed this threat head on. I was made aware last night that 3 of our responding Farmington police officers were at lunch when the call came in and responded to this call without body armor, and were there to immediately face this threat. For their efforts and for the immediate response of the law enforcement agencies across San Juan County, the FBI, the state, I say thank you. 2 of our law enforcement officers were injured in yesterday's events, a Farmington police officer and a state trooper. I'm happy to say that those individuals were treated at San Juan Regional Medical Center and have been released. To those first responders who were there immediately on scene and to our medical staff and leadership at San Juan Regional, I extend my thanks for, as Ruth Brooks and I talked about today, for doing your jobs. And ladies and gentlemen, and that is what happened yesterday. Every single day, our law enforcement officers and agents face the threat of potential risks such as this. I don't face that in my daily life. Most of us don't. And I appreciate the courage in which they go about their jobs and the ability to call on training and the opportunity that it has to be shown in its utmost horrible situations. I want to thank the neighborhood where this activity happened and the number of citizens who came out to try and support law enforcement, directing them where they needed to go to ensure that no more lives were taken. There were many acts of bravery that occurred yesterday that I'm sure we will hear stories about for months to come. And so I extend my thanks to those citizens who were in that area who provided that support. Last night we had a vigil at Hills Church. I want to thank the church for taking the time and opportunity to try and coordinate and organize the event. It was well attended for only 1 hour of notice. There will be many of those opportunities in our community over the months or weeks probably ahead, days ahead at least. Tomorrow night at 6 p.m. at the Farmington Museum, we will be hosting a city vigil community gathering, and I encourage our community to come out in support of one another. Again, that's 6 p.m. at the Farmington Museum. I want to thank for the outpouring of support that I personally have received, as well as I know that our officers have received here. I've had people contact me from all across the country, a number of mayors here in the state, our governor, and many others, elected officials in Washington, D.C. Ladies and gentlemen, today I'm just asking finally that we remain confident in ourselves and our community and our ability to address this situation. Do everything we can to mourn with those who have lost loved ones, support them. That is what community does. A number of organizations are putting together efforts to help address individuals who may be suffering at this time. So please make sure you're reaching out to Presbyterian Medical Services, Desert View Family Counseling. If you're a religious individual and you are in need of help and someone to talk to, please reach out to your church of choice. St. John's Episcopal Church will be hosting a memorial tomorrow at noon. Father Guy Mackey has put that together, so please take the time to go there if you need to. Let's reflect on our emotions. Let's check on our family each and every day and not miss an opportunity to tell somebody that we love them, hold them, cherish them. Let's take care of each other. That's what we do here in the city of Farmington. Thank you.
Good afternoon. On behalf of the FBI, we would like to extend our condolences to the victims, families, and the city of Farmington. As soon as we learned of this horrific situation, we responded to offer to Farmington PD and the county our resources here in New Mexico and nationally. We would like to recognize the heroic acts by the Farmington PD and the civilians that assisted the Farmington PD. These officers placed their lives in danger to save lives. We would like to recognize also the outstanding work by the San Juan County Sheriff's Office and our local partners and state partners to prevent this situation to be larger and to investigate and make sure that we have any answers that you have. We are here to offer our assistance. We have victim specialists working together with the Farmington Police Department victim specialist. If you were present and were not injured during this incident and would like to receive any assistance, please contact the the Victims Assistance Center located here in Farmington Civic Center to receive that assistance. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. I'm San Juan County Sheriff Shane Ferrari. First and foremost, we want to offer our deepest heartfelt condolences to the community members that we lost yesterday. We are praying for those that were injured and wish you a very quick recovery. And we owe a huge debt of gratitude to our first responders. I have no doubt without their quick action that this tragedy could have been much worse. The San Juan County Sheriff's Office did respond as the incident was active. Deputies from patrol and detectives went into the scene to make sure there were no more threats at that time and secure the scene. The San Juan County Sheriff's role at this time is running a parallel investigation along with the criminal investigation as into the actions of the law enforcement officers that fired and stopped the action of the suspect. We consider that, or call that, an officer-involved shooting. The San Juan County Sheriff's Office, along with a partnership of local agencies, have in the past and now have our San Juan County law enforcement officer-involved shooting team. We are taking lead on that at this time. The purpose of that investigation is to make sure the officers that fired, that their actions were lawful. Right now, we have 4 officers that did fire during that time, firing a total of 16 rounds. One of those officers involved was wounded. At the conclusion of our investigation, that report will be sent to the district attorney's office, where they will make the determination of whether those officers' actions were lawful or not. So be patient. That investigation will most likely take place over the next week before it is concluded. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Robert Sterrett, Fire Chief at Farmington Fire Department. I'm going to give a brief patient count information. There were 7 patients treated by San Juan Regional Medical Center, 3 of which were transported by San Juan Regional EMS, 2 transported POV, personal vehicle, and then also the 2 officers that were transported. There were also 2 deceased patients in a vehicle, and then the subject. Thank you.
I appreciate the updates from those agencies. Chief Johnson has offered his support in any way that we needed to, so they'll be doing, ancillary work for us and helping us make sure this investigation is the best it can be. So thank you to the state police as well. So I'm going to talk about a timeline of events. So the suspect has been identified as Bo Wilson, spelled Boy Edward Adam Union. That's B-E-A-U, last name Wilson, 18-year-old male. He is a student of Farmington High School. He was armed with multiple firearms, including an AR-style rifle. We are still investigating how he came into possession of those firearms, but we do know that he did purchase one legally November 2022. It is important to note that this incident appears to be purely random and had no specific targets or motives that we can identify at this time. I want to reiterate, though, that the investigation is ongoing. It's ever unfolding, ever changing. We may have to go back and correct some of this as we learn new information, but these are the events as they're currently known to us. The suspect then roamed through the neighborhood and indiscriminately fired at least 6 houses and 3 vehicles. Again, that number is continuing to grow as we sit here today. So how this unfolded is at 10:56 a.m., a Ring doorbell in the neighborhood observed the suspect firing his first shots in the vicinity. At approximately 10:57 a.m., officers from the Farmington Police Department were dispatched to the area of Ute and North Dustin, following reports of shots fired. We're having a difficult time getting the exact number of how many people called, but it was hundreds of people called in on this event, is our estimation. So again, that was 10:57. Officers are dispatched. 11:02, as shots were still continuously being fired by the suspect, officers arrived on scene. At 11:06 a.m., shots were fired by multiple officers and the subject. The suspect was shot, and almost simultaneously as well, an officer was shot. Deputy Chief Crum will give updates, like I said, on the victims. The suspect was shot and he was pronounced deceased on the scene. So responding officers, including Sergeant Rachel DeSenza of the Farmington Police Department and another state police officer who we'll talk about here shortly, bravely engaged the suspects in the 700 block of North Dustin, where the confrontation ensued. The suspect was shot and killed by the Farmington police officers, who were the only law enforcement agency that fired any shots. Law enforcement acted swiftly and heroically to neutralize the threat, putting their lives on the line to protect the residents of Farmington. Again, we'll have a Q&A session at the end. I realize there's going to be more questions about that, and we'll stand to answer those questions. But now Deputy Chief Barrett Crum will talk about the victims.
Good afternoon. I'm Deputy Chief Barrett Crum. We mourn the loss of our 3 innocent civilians who lost their lives yesterday. Shirley Voita, Melody Ivy, and Gwendolyn Schofield. Shirley, Melody, and Gwendolyn were valued members of our community, and their untimely deaths have left a void that can never be filled. Our hearts go out to their families and loved ones during this unimaginable, difficult time. We stand in solidarity with them, offering our deepest condolences, compassion, and support. The 2 officers that were injured in this event, the first, Sergeant Rachel DeSenza of the Farmington Police Department, a dedicated member, has served with distinction for the past 10 years. State Police Officer Andreas Stamatiadis, a 4-year veteran, was struck by gunfire while driving to the scene. We commend them for their bravery and commendable actions in the face of this extreme danger. There were also, there were also 4 treated at the hospital. There were other civilians that were treated on scene as a result of the action of this active shooter's decisions by EMS and by San Juan Regional Medical Center staff. In light of this horrific incident, the Farmington Police Department has mobilized victim advocate services in conjunction with the FBI. Those resources are working closely with family who have been affected by this incident. These compassionate professionals will provide support, resources, guidance, and help to help them navigate this especially challenging time. We understand that the road to healing will be long and arduous, but we are committed to standing by their side every step of the way. We also want to express sincere gratitude to all our local partnering law enforcement agencies, Fire, EMS, San Juan Regional Medical Center, and other emergency management and first responder agencies that provided invaluable assistance and service during the response to this incident. The collaborative efforts and swift coordination between our law enforcement partners have been instrumental in ensuring that our community is safe. We are deeply grateful for the unwavering support and professionalism by these agencies. The Farmington Police Department will continue to work diligently to gather all relevant information and provide updates as the investigation progresses. We urge anyone with any additional information related to this incident to come forward and contact our dispatch at 505-334-6622. In conclusion, our community is strong, resilient, and united. Together we will heal and overcome this tragedy. We stand as one, determined to foster a safe environment where all our residents can thrive. At this time, we'll take questions for the next 15 minutes.
You said that at this point it appears this shooting was random. What sort of gives you that confidence? What in your investigation sort of like that still be investigated?
No, sure, that's a fair question. So at this point, we haven't determined any link between the victims and the suspect, or the suspects amongst each other, except for two were related that were in a vehicle together. At this point, we've discovered nothing that leads us to believe that this suspect knew any of the people. There's no indication that that's going to change. That we're pretty confident in, that this was completely random, and because the shooting was arbitrary and up and down the street. It's approximately almost a quarter of a mile crime scene, so pretty large and vast. And he was just shooting indiscriminately, houses, cars, people as he went. Yes, ma'am.
More about the gun. When did he get them? He said
Mhm.
bought one reloaded, but he's not even 18, right?
He is 18.
He's 18.
Yes, ma'am.
So he bought it in 2022?
Correct. November.
Was he 18 then?
Correct. He turned 18 in October of 2022.
Okay, how about the other two guns?
So at this point, we believe he got them from a family member. And by got them, that's a loose interpretation of the word. We believe that a family member was the legal owner of those firearms that he obtained. No AK, I'm sorry. No, and it's an assault. When we say assault style rifle, that's more of like a long gun style of rifle. So we're not going to say an AR-15 or an AK-47. It's just an assault style rifle.
Who does that belong to?
I'm going to have to go to the next one. Ma'am. Yes, Shanice.
Did the shooter live in the neighborhood?
He had multiple addresses. He was staying at one of the addresses in the neighborhood, correct? In the back, ma'am?
Do you have any information on the status of some of the injured civilians, their condition, what they were doing in the neighborhood?
So as we've already kind of indicated, most of these individuals were driving through the area. There were no individuals injured within their homes. So all parties that were injured were actually driving through this area when he opened fire upon them while they were in their vehicles. There were 3 deceased from this incident, 2 of which were deceased on scene, 1 which later died from her wounds at San Juan Regional Medical Center, and the other individuals received medical attention at San Juan Regional Medical Center and were released, while other individuals received medical attention on scene and were released from the scene. Yes, sir.
Was this young man on your radar at all? Any bumps before with law to maybe give an idea of a motive?
So at this point, no motive. He did have minor infractions as a juvenile, but nothing that would rise to the level of any serious crime. And we have not, in our investigation so far, not come across anything that would necessarily rise to the radar of being on our radar, like you said.
Did you leave anything behind?
We are still looking for that. At this point, we have not found anything, but that's still part of the ongoing investigation, and that may change.
Is it safe to say the 2 weapons that he acquired from the family member, that family member was unaware?
That I don't know. That's still part of the ongoing investigation. Yes, ma'am.
Do you come across any of these, they have some mental health issues or is that?
We have come across some indication that potentially he had some mental health issues, and that's through interviews with involved parties in his life. That's about as far as I can go on that, but there have, in subsequent interviews, there have been some concern about his mental health. Yes, sir.
Can you tell us anything about how his family reacted?
I actually cannot. Thank you, though. Ma'am?
There was 3 weapons involved, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And so can you tell us how many rounds were shot from each weapon?
So at this point, and again, this is a very large crime scene, and when we're doing the best we can with that part now. At this point, we found at least 150. Now, I can't say who fired what yet because I'm not sure. So on the scene so far, and we're still counting, that's legitimately going to go up. At this point, we found approximately 150 exchanged between everyone. Anyone else who hasn't asked one yet? Shanice?
Was he set to graduate from Farmington High School this semester?
So I cannot comment on that. I don't think the municipal schools in back.
The people who died, did that happen right away or did he talk or build up to that?
Okay. So if I understand you correctly, and I don't want to, misinterpret what you said, did he begin shooting right when he was seen? Is that what you?
Did he start with the intent to kill as far as you can tell?
There's no way for us to tell his intent at this point. What I will tell you is that Ring doorbell camera footage caught him in the area at 10:56, and that's when he starts shooting, is right when the Ring doorbell picks him up. That is not. That's part of an ongoing investigation. At some point, maybe we do release that. But at this point, we're still investigating. Does anybody else not ask questions? Yes, sir.
Given his history of mental health that is known, his access to firearms, what steps are law enforcement taking, or what can be done that law enforcement can take for the community to prevent these random acts of violence from happening in the future?
Yeah, fair question. So what we do know is that mental health is just something that came from an interview with family members. So we don't know yet if he's been diagnosed. I think, many people have issues and concerns with maybe their family members or relatives that doesn't rise to a level of not being able to own a gun. So at this point, the mental health thing is still evolving. We're definitely trying to track that as fast as we can. I just don't have good answers to the level that approached. Yes, ma'am.
Are you going to release any from camera?
We are.
Video?
Yes, ma'am. No. Our goal is, so the investigation is still ongoing. Our goal is to quickly release that in the next couple of days. As soon as I actually should have said this sooner. I'm sorry. So Sheriff Ferrari is correct in saying that he is handling the officer-involved shooting. The Farmington Police Department is handling the criminal charges of the person who committed mass murder. So we are taking the criminal aspect, and also it is a parallel investigation, like the sheriff said. It is a criminal investigation too. We fired our weapons, so they're going to make a determination if that was lawful and justified at that point. Yes, sir, in the back.
What are the ages of the victims who are indeed?
The ages of the victims that are deceased, I can tell you that they were all three elderly. I apologize, I don't have those notes right here in front of me. I know that two of them were in their 70s and one of them was in their 90s. And the two that died on scene were a mother and her daughter, 70 and 90 approximately.
And we don't believe he was targeting elderly people, but more age ranges were shot or injured that day.
Right. Everything that we know about this crime scene, all of his actions were focused on vehicles that were traveling through the area, and other people were of other ages and not necessarily from the city of Farmington either.
Give us spellings of their names.
I do.
Thank you.
Would you like them in now, or I can get with you afterward for other questions to come forward?
Give them out.
Perfect. Other questions? Yes, ma'am.
The other 6 people were injured, were they all injured by gunfire?
So we know that he was firing into vehicles, and with such action, when a round penetrates the glass of the vehicle, that glass can explode into and upon the individuals and cut and fracture and do damage to the individual persons. So we know that a lot of those were that type of injury. There were 5 other persons that were injured in that manner. Yes, sir.
You said that the shooter had an assault-style rifle. I'm curious if your officers were outfitted similarly, or were they essentially outgunned?
No. So one of our officers did have his issued long gun. We had another officer with a shotgun, and we had 2 officers with handguns.
Did you mention already, I'm sorry, if the assault style rifle was the one purchased legally?
Correct. That is correct.
By him?
That is correct. Yes, ma'am.
Could the family members who own the other guns be charged?
So we're looking into all avenues. I can't say a definitive yes or no on that. As many of you know, House Bill 9, was just recently voted upon in our legislature. That is not in effect yet. He also is not a minor. He's 18 years old. So some of those questions have been coming into our office about current legislation. But the truth is in our precursory look at it, it appears that him being over 18, as well as that law not being enacted yet, we're not going to deal with that portion of it, but that doesn't mean that there's not other avenues to that.
Was Officer Vicento shot in exchange with the suspect?
Correct. Yeah. So as they're approaching on scene, there's shots being fired in the area. They give commands. They show up, they give commands, multiple commands. He starts shooting back at them. They shoot at him, and in that exchange of gunfire, she's hitting the toe. Hold on one second. Anybody else saw another hand up there?
Can you speak to how how the department and other first responders are doing emotionally with the department to support their officers?
We can. Most agencies in our community are pretty well equipped with crisis intervention measures in-house. And I can tell you the Farmington Police Department employs 2 therapists for our agency, and we are providing those in-house services along with other city services and other resources from the state as far as helping with psychological issues or PTSD. And so we already have officers that are utilizing those resources for their care. Other questions? Yes, ma'am. On the right.
Many are wondering why it took hours for the police to alert the public of what was going on and provide more information after it happened. Can you offer any insight on that?
So I can tell you this, in incidents like this, when it's chaotic and overwhelming, we have to determine a lot of different things on what is actually going on. And in this case, there was a lot of information flowing in about the actual crime scene, which we've kind of described to you. It's well over 1/4 mile in length. And so we're trying to figure out what all is involved, who all was involved, if there are more than one shooter. As we've already indicated, there was only one shooter involved in this incident, but in initial, there was a lot of communication from civilians that there may have potentially been more than one shooter. And so that was delaying our rapid response to the media about what was evolving within the crime scene itself. Yes, ma'am.
Is it true that 3 officers jumped up from lunch and dove in without their body armor? The 2 who were shot, were they wearing their body armor?
So they were on their way to lunch. Those 3 individuals were not shot. Sergeant DeSenze is a patrol sergeant, and she was on duty in uniform. They were all on duty. She was in her actual patrol uniform. She was wearing body armor. The other officer from the state police also was on duty in a full uniform, and he did have body armor on as well.
Did that body armor help Officer DeSenze?
It did not. She was shot in the pelvic region, and she's still recovering from her wounds. Yes, ma'am.
Aside from the 150 rounds that were discharged, do we know how much ammo he had remaining?
I don't. I don't know that. I'm not saying we as an agency don't know that. I just don't personally know that. We have about 3 more minutes. Yes, ma'am.
Do you have a total number injured of people treated on scene and at the hospital?
Yeah, I know. So that's a little confusing. I'll have Deputy Chief Crum kind of clear that up a little bit, just about where they were.
So we know that 7 individuals were treated at San Juan Regional Medical Center for their wounds that they incurred from this incident. We don't have an accurate count of number of individuals that were treated on scene and released from there. Do you have any? We're still gathering that information just because we had so much coming and going from that. So we can get that on-scene information to you so you have that.
We have time for 2 more questions.
Shanice.
Was the suspect only shooting at vehicles during the rampage?
At this point, our investigation is showing that he was indiscriminately shooting at vehicles, but also during that shooting, we know that rounds hit residences in the area. Yes, ma'am.
And I understand that there are some school threats that have been made in the last 24 hours. Can you speak to what's being done about that? If there are concerns that there might be someone else out there?
So when this occurred, we put all of our schools in lockdown. And as we got more aware of what was occurring, we narrowed down the lockdown to a specific area around that. And we have since released that lockdown. As it goes with a lot of our schools in this area and around the United States, we deal with those on a daily basis and take the necessary actions to deal with those as they come about.
So that was, I'll let you get one. You haven't had one yet, but just to clarify, he's absolutely right. We do deal with this a lot. So I think you're talking about the current 2 we had today. So no, those appear to be unrelated. One of them doesn't even appear to be in our area. The other one we have dealt with, and we're quickly processing that juvenile who made that threat. but they are unrelated. So today's threats on schools were unrelated to the incident that happened yesterday. Last question here, ma'am.
Yeah, just to clarify, there were 3 victims.
Okay.
Plus
Yeah.
the shooter.
Okay, so I'm gonna break this down. That's a good, I'm gonna recap it. I know this is a little bit confusing. Honestly, it's been confusing for us because so many people are driving themselves to the hospital. So we have the suspect who is deceased. We had 2 elderly females that were deceased on scene. 1 elderly female was transported to the hospital and later pronounced dead from her injuries. Then we had 2 officers get hit that were treated at the San Juan Regional Medical Facility. And then we had 4 other civilians that were also injured. I'm only going to take clarifying questions on that. Yes.
And the 2 deceased on scene, the elderly.
Yes, sir.
That was the mother and daughter.
That is correct. They were traveling in the same vehicle. Is that a clarifying question to that?
I think so.
Okay, well,
With respect to this national morass of mass shootings,
Yeah.
did you ever, while this happened in Farmington?
I don't think anybody ever thinks this is going to happen anywhere. I don't think NYPD thinks this is such a tragic event. It's overwhelming to the senses. We were on scene. Many of us up here were on scene. And when you encounter something of such, magnitude that, it shocks your senses. The amount of violence and brutality that these innocent people faced is something that is unconscionable to me. And I don't care what age you are. I don't care what else is going on in your life. To kill 3 innocent elderly women that were just absolutely in no position to defend themselves is always going to be a tragedy. That'll be our last question. Is it a follow-up to that?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
So I was wondering, is this a mass shooting or is it cataloged as a mass?
So, I don't make those determinations. To me, it's semantics. It's 3 people lost their lives that were absolutely innocent. So I do understand that's a national debate that's raging. How many constitutes what? Honestly, I'm not even going to get into that today. It's just a tragedy for our community. So at that point, I appreciate everyone's questions. If you have any follow-up off the record questions, it's only going to be for things like spelling of names or things like that. We are going to conduct a briefing every day at 2 p.m. in this room for the foreseeable future. So that is an open invitation to media. 2 p.m. We're going to give updates every day as this investigation progresses. Thank you.
We have been watching along with you the press conference that has been happening at the Farmington Civic Center. I'm Scott Michlin here at the KSJE studio, and we wanted to kind of recap a little bit about what we saw here today just a few moments ago, and also remind you about some of the resources that are being made available at the throughout the community. So let's go back for a minute.
Our chief of police is actually headed back here. He was in a family wedding in Pennsylvania. As soon as this broke, he jumps in the car. He's been driving almost nonstop. That's why he's not here today, but he is going to be here tomorrow. So anyone, if you want in-camera interviews or any of these other, subsidiary interviews, our chief of police, Chief Steve Hebby, will be back, and tomorrow he will start conducting these briefings, and he will set up any other on-camera interviews.
Deputy Chief Kyle Dowdy there explaining why Farmington Police Chief Steve Hebby was not at this press conference today, saying he was out of town in the Midwest at a family wedding when all this happened, and has been driving back to Farmington since this incident took place. Again, the first reports came in a little bit before 11 a.m. on Monday, and police and other first responders began to converge on the neighborhood. Again, I wanted to share with you some of the resources that have been made available about this crisis. The New Mexico Crisis and Access Line is 988 statewide. Desert View Family Counseling is also making their services available at 505-326-7878. Option number 1. Tota Behavioral Health at 505-564-4804. And Farmington Community Health at 505-326-4796. And those are some of the resources that are being made available throughout the community. And other than that, they're going through back at the press conference the spelling of some of the names. We heard from a lot of folks In our coverage that began just about 2 o'clock, again, Deputy Chiefs of the Farmington Police Department, Kyle Dowdy and Vera Crum. We heard from Sheriff Shane Ferrari, San Juan County Sheriff's Office, who talked about their concurrent investigation into the officer-involved shootings that, of course, happened during this tragedy. Mayor Nate Duckett, Mayor of Farmington, also giving some comments there. We also heard from Special Agent of the FBI, who was there as well, and Farmington Fire Chief Robert Sterrett, and the FBI Special Agent Ruben Marchand Morales, who made some comments earlier as well. We just want to provide this with you. We will try to present all of the briefings as they are coming, as the Deputy Chief said, at 2 o'clock. As this investigation progresses, and so we're very happy to be able to try to present some of those briefings for you here at KSJE. And again, just some of the other information that we gleaned from the press conference today. Of course, they identified the Farmington Police Sergeant who was injured and is still hospitalized, and then the New Mexico State Police officer who was also shot and wounded, but we understand that he was treated and released from the hospital. There still seems to be a little bit of confusion on just the numbers of the injured because, again, the hospital reported seeing 7 patients. It's obvious now that one patient died at the hospital, one of the 3 civilians who were killed. The others, we were informed today, of course, was the mother and daughter, the elderly mother and daughter who were injured and killed in the car at the scene today, Monday, pardon me. And so we heard about that as well. That is our coverage this afternoon. We thank you for joining us, everyone. We are Farmington Strong, and we'll be back with more, of course, here on KSJE. We'll be updating the story, of course, too, at our website, ksje.com.